Good afternoon, good morning, or good night if you decide to sleep. I am Chone, a peace fellow from Thailand. My topic today is from the beauty of pristine forest to the beauty of justice. And I would like to begin my presentation by asking you a very simple question. What is your favorite national park in the US? I got Yosemite here. I think this name will be one of the first names that comes to mind, and me too. I've been to Yosemite, and I was so stunned by the beauty of the Half Dome, El Capitan, Yosemite Falls. It's amazing. Since I moved here in the US and North Carolina, I really enjoy discovering new beautiful landscape. And one way that I use to express my appreciation to this beautiful nature is by paintings. These are some of my artworks during my time here. Thank you. Thank you. But this leads to the next question to you. How much do we really appreciate those who took care of the nature before us? Maybe not so much. So I would like to take this opportunity again to acknowledge and pay my respect to the Okanishi elders, ancestors, and communities who the traditional carrier for this land be gathering here today. And like the USA, Thailand, my home country, also has incredible natural landscapes. Do you agree, those who've been to Thailand? Yes, but those lands also intersect with the traditional land of the indigenous people and local communities. So my presentation today will take you on a journey, much like the one I have traveled, because the changes in my perception of what makes forests beautiful, I've set myself on a path to help the people in my country change the perception, and perhaps some of you too today. So the whole story started when Thailand adopted what has been called America's best idea, which is the national park system. And established its first national park in Thailand in 1962, following the oldest national park in the US, which is Yellowstone National Park. Here, this is the first national park in Thailand called Khao Yai, means big mountains. It's beautiful, one of the most popular. But behind the success establishment of this beautiful park, it also carried with it the structure of violence, exclusion, and marginalization of the indigenous people and local communities. As you can see here, the establishment of the park followed the forest conservation model of people-free forests, involving using violence and force. So basically, people from the cities, tourists are welcome, while those who have supported the land health are kicked out of their homes. A little different from the US, in Thailand, the idea for establishing national park has some link to modernization of the country during the Cold War period. As you can see from the excerpt here, from Mr. Bunsong, he's one of the key person in pushing for establishing national park in Thailand, saying that establishment of the wildlife conservation law and national park in Thailand has shown to the world that Thai people have moved beyond the barbarism of the people who are only aware of food for stomach, now to the era of civilization. It's time to know of food for eyes, for ears, and for brain. This extremely problematic view contribute to the discourse that the use of resources by the people, by the local community, equal uncivilized, and went about justifying, normalizing eviction of the communities. And to some extent, I think I was part of that product too, the product of the discourse. This is a book from my childhood. It's one of the thickest and most expensive books. It's all about national park in Thailand. I remember reading it over and over, and I felt like I traveled to all places. I grew up with with the book and with the love for nature. But most importantly, that means I grew up knowing about national park, but not knowing about the people who took care of the park before and actually lived there before the establishment of the national park. And when we grew up with the global issues the world are facing, we learn more and more the importance of forest resources, from being carbon sinks, water resources, generating income from tourism, or biodiversity conservation, education, and research, to mental health benefit from being in nature. But what is missing from here? What is missing from what we learn? I think we're missing that it's also the home, food, culture, identity for so many groups. It took me about 20 years to learn that conservation is about much more than ecological values, but it's about the hierarchy of values and who gets to decide on those values. I deepen my relationships with the indigenous people when I get to work on the project that allow me to spend time with the communities. Through this process, my perspective about conservation underwent profound transformation. I learned that the centralized and authoritarian governance of forests contributed to the plight of indigenous people in Thailand. So now I would like to take you to the northern and eastern forests of Thailand. So let's follow the elephants into the communities. So it's home to Karen or Pakayor indigenous tribe. So they are one of the main groups that live in the areas. Beautifully, they are also known as the tribe that live closely connected to the nature. When I was in the community, one of the members proudly present me one of the traditional practice that keeps the forest thriving. It's called the Potu. It's when the child is born, the father will place the umbilical cord into the bamboo tube and tie it on the tree. It's believed that the child spirit remains on the tree forever and prevent anybody to cut it down. So this shows the deep expression of their identity. But despite this, a lot of community has been persecuted by the government. They've been forced to change the traditional livelihood practice. They have limited access to forest products. They've been forced relocated from their home. Their houses and granaries burned down. Also, many activists were forced to disappear. All the incidents that I just have shown you now highlights that current people are one of the most disenfranchised, marginalized, and discriminated against group in Thailand. But moreover, many have no citizenship, no land rights, not recognized as indigenous people. Therefore, they have little access to the service. So imagine, how would you feel if you've been keeping the forest for centuries, and one day you found yourself being charged as an encroacher in your own home? How would you feel that? Because you've been living before the national park establishment. So this reflects the current dynamic of the forest governance in Thailand, which is really centralized, using eviction and lawsuit against indigenous people, and go about national security reason. But this structure could not have been so strong without being reinforced by the narrative through education system and mass media that made the broader public has a negative attitude toward indigenous people and always put the blame on them. And this attitude support back the policy as a circle. How can we shift this? Over the years, there have been initiatives, policy try to address the issue from co-management of the park, amendments of the law, but the meaningful progress has been slow and limited because of the lack of political will. That's why today I really advocate for the narrative shift and change in the perspective of the broader public so that we have the public will to influence the political will. I know narrative shift is challenging, but it's possible. As I share through my journey from my experience unlearning and relearning history, having exposed myself to different sets of idea and information, deconstructing what I grew up learning, and recognize my own ignorance, and better understand my core values, and discerning how I can contribute. We can learn a lot from asking questions, who is not included in the conservation effort, and then committing to listen to those voices. That's how we can influence change from self to society. And I tend to see myself as a bridge. My role is a bridge to bridge between what I have been understanding, what I have been learning from the local community with the broader Thai people to make them understand better the indigenous people, both the ecological knowledge with wisdom and the injustice they've been facing. But either you live in Thailand or live in the US, we cannot build a bridge between the harmful past narrative and the more inclusive conservation effort in the future. You can all be the bridge. And I'm not saying that we should stop visiting national park or feel ashamed about it. But what I'm saying is that protecting nature can go hand in hand with protecting the rights of the indigenous people and local communities. Without protecting their rights, conservation efforts aren't sustainable. It's not truly sustainable. It's going to create more conflicts. It doesn't build peace. Let's imagine if we all together can advocate for what it takes to achieve the injustice around conservation and protecting the rights of the people. One day, we go back to those places again and gaze at the Half Dome, El Capitan, and Yosemite Falls, and know that we are not just seeing the beauty of landscape and pristine forests, but also seeing the practice of justice, the beauty of justice. Thank you.